Andrew,
What's going on?
thanks for swinging by, man. I really appreciate it.
Last time I was here in this building, I got escorted out by police from, I was campaigning.
Did you?
And we were knocking on doors, and we got kicked out. So
That's
it's good to be back
invited
this
that's
time.
fun. See, I knew you'd bring the good stories right out of the gate. That's good.
I don't know how it happened, but yeah, it was pretty funny.
That was when you were running with DeFusco.
Yeah.
That's fine. How far did you get through the building before that happened?
We got to, we started at the top, worked our way down. I don't know how many floors, but we probably got like 3 floors down. Okay. And then the cops appeared, and we were like, what's going on?
Which building did you start at the top of? My building or the other building?
Man, I don't even know.
Right.
I don't even know. I think it was, we went to the right. So,
yeah.
Is that the other side, probably, right?
Yeah.
But
Should give you the inner secrets. That's
so,
not the building to start with, but
I got so many,
that.
This was the only building that kicked us out.
Right.
Which I
well, you know, I'm actually kind of glad that happened because I was in the bad situation the last election that I had to respect my condo rules because I live here.
You can.
But other people got away with breaking them because people weren't willing to kick them out. So I think they got more aggressive with picking about it.
I think you're not allowed to knock on doors, right? Essentially,
you're not allowed to. And then I only knocked on doors in my building when I was collecting signatures.
Right.
And I would knock and it would right away be like, I wouldn't say I'm running for office. I'd be like, hey, I'm your neighbor. I live in this building, this floor. And I'm just like, I'm thinking about running for office.
For sure.
Yeah. But I didn't knock on doors, although the campaign I was attached to sent some kids over. It caused friction with me in the campaign because I was like, you're violating my rules, and you're not even sending me around. And then there were people around here that didn't believe me. They're like, well, how did you not know? I'm like, I didn't know. I wouldn't have allowed that to happen. I would have represented myself in my own building.
Yeah, there's definitely
not have a high school kid.
Some tricks going on for sure.
Yeah. So tell me about. I don't know a ton about you, and like I've done 2 of these before with people that I know a lot more about. So
we see each other once a month, but we don't really get a chance. We don't get a chance to talk.
Absolutely.
But, I'm from Freehold, New Jersey. Went to school at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
Got my finance degree. Graduated in 06. And then moved here, worked on Wall Street. So I thought, Hoboken was the closest spot on the Jersey side that I was comfortable with. Moved here as a 22-year-old kid, worked on Wall Street for 6 years. Totally different in 2006 as a 22-year-old living here than a 35-year-old right now with a family. And I think Hoboken is perfect for both situations. But after 6 years of Wall Street, I wanted to get into coaching, follow my passion.
Right.
So I started coaching, started at Hoboken High School as a volunteer.
Nice.
And did that for a year, unpaid, volunteer, working, grinding. And then really got the love of the game, love of coaching, changing, kids' lives. Started to do coaching at Pace University and founded a company, Next Basket Wins, which I run now that does...
What's the name again?
Next Basket Wins.
Okay.
So we do summer camps, adult leagues here in Hoboken. We have an adult league that does probably about 30 teams every season.
Nice.
Fall, winter, spring. And then I kind of morphed into a little entrepreneur to try to put some food on the table so my wife would let me chase this dream that I'm chasing.
Right.
And essentially that's what I'm doing. I started Parking Dude. I do real estate.
So you're telling me it's too expensive in Hoboken, you actually have to have a side hustle?
Oh yeah, if you don't, I don't know how you don't have a side hustle.
Oh yeah, no.
So that's kind of where I've got into multiple things and wear multiple hats. But
right.
the core value of what I'm trying to get to is coaching and being in the basketball profession.
That's great.
So.
Well, yeah, I can appreciate that. And I honestly think that's, without knowing you super well, that's what I've always been most impressed with you. Because I am a teacher, and it's just anybody who gives back to kids and does it in an effective way. It's awesome. So tell me some more about that. Like, what are you doing? What have you done historically with the kids in this area?
So yeah, we my first team when I was working on Wall Street, I coached a team of probably 7 or 8 Hoboken Housing Authority youth, and it was funded by the PAL of Hoboken, and that was my first coaching experiment.
Right.
And that was kind of the director of rec at the time kind of gave us some funding, and we applied for a grant. We took the kids down to Belmar to play at the hoop group tournament, and I drove them all down in a rented Suburban, and
nice.
It was just such a great experiment and experience. and the kids loved it. The kids were never out of Hoboken, so we were able to give them an opportunity to get out and see the state a little bit and play basketball. So it was cool, for sure. And then now we run a summer basketball camp, which has about 300 to 400 youth, all from Hoboken and Jersey City. And
so you do pull into Jersey City?
Yeah, we pull. We have kids coming from Bayonne, some Union City, different areas.
What's the ages on that?
5 to 14.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really good. I mean, I teach high school now, but I used to teach middle school, and I mean the high school kids definitely. Every kid needs as much of an outlet as they can, but middle school is really where a kid can go in one direction or another, and it's just so fun.
And we see like working in the housing authority, like you need sometimes a lot of kids need an outlet, something to distract themselves from either their family situation or their day at school, a place to go that's safe and they can compete and play on a team. I mean it's really important.
It is,
especially here where you have so many. You have such a struggle of like there's a lot of affluence, right? And there's a lot of there's the middle. Our class breakdown is so evident in a place like.
And there's a gulf between the haves and the have-nots. It's just this chasm.
Exactly. And if you can bridge that somehow, which we try to do through basketball, it's better for everybody. You could see you get to meet kids that live at 10th and Hudson, that live at 5th and Harrison, that live at the Sky Club. Everyone comes together just because of basketball. It's a nice little thing.
Yeah, no.
And that's what brings me the most. That's what's most rewarding.
I mean, 100%, and it's a detriment that there's such this chasm, but it can also be an asset, because if you link up a kid who, maybe they want to do something with their career, but they just haven't had access to people who have gone down that career path. If you can link them up with a mentor or somebody that can give them that insight that maybe another kid would have that they don't have access to, you can really change their lives in a tremendous way.
And I think that Big Brother program is something special. I know that there's a couple programs, nonprofits in Hoboken that are working to do that. And there's so many, the guys that play in our adult league, like we have over 500 guys that are between 25 to 35, working on Wall Street and medical sales and lawyers and doctors, and it's a great outlet to give to our youth as a role model.
Sure.
And that's what community is, right? I mean, that's why you're involved with the housing authority. That's why I'm involved, is to try to impact our community in a positive way, that we're not just living in it. We're trying to be a part of it.
Yeah, and that's the positive of a place that, Hoboken, it is a city, but it's a small city.
Right.
So if you can actually successfully tie those different people together and benefit everybody from it, it's just a win-win.
I think we get a bad rap, though. I think Hoboken gets a bad rap.
In what way?
Just we're known as like the yuppies, and we're like, if you're not born in Hoboken, you're a different breed, right? If you're not, you're either really affluent and wealthy, and then you get a bad rap that you're spoiled, or and I hate that. I don't like when that happens, because I think this is a great place to live.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And it's got a different blend of everybody, and everyone can, co-mingle, no problem.
Absolutely. And if you leverage that, I mean, there is a lot of wealth here, but if you leverage that, you might get a kid, that we serve in the housing authority, who maybe wants to go into advertising, but they don't know the first thing about it, and suddenly you're hooking them up with a mentorship with some account executive who's working on these major accounts.
For sure.
You can just open up their world to making that, instead of just something they're thinking about. They can make a game plan to actually make it happen.
Right. The biggest joy for running Next Basket Wins is I've got 3 or 4 kids that on that first basketball team that I ran now working for Next Basket Wins as coaches, as referees.
That's great.
There's a guy, this kid Ricardo, who's he's now a young adult. And I coached him when he was 14, and now he's like the camp director.
Nice.
And to see him grow up, and to see him give him the tools, and that's what really makes me tick and get me going. I would love to get him a job one day, coaching or something where he can get his own place. And I always tell him, I'm always telling all the guys that are living in the housing authority, I'm like, your number one goal is to get out, right? To move out, to start a family, move out, whether it's out of Hoboken, but get out of the housing authority. Like that should be your goal, you know.
Yeah,
and not in a negative way.
No, but it's almost a thing in this country, and I think it's a lot of it's how the Fed set it up.
Yeah.
The whole like raising the rents, you make more money and you're paying more rent. I don't know if that's really the wisest thing to do, because it makes it cyclical where it's hard to break out of it.
Sure.
You almost wish you could instead of raising the rent, you'd give somebody an option to say, you know, just like when I put money into my daughter's college accounts, it can only be used for college. I could divert it to maybe a family member for use of college or education, probably even to myself or my wife for college or education, but that's the only thing that money could ever be used for once I sink it into that account. I always wish that we had a system where maybe there's something like an account where instead of raising the rent, we say, here's an account that you can only use on a down payment for a home that you own.
There was that.
There was that. Actually, tell me more about that.
Well,
I don't know much about
that. I taking the classes that we have to take at Rutgers for the housing authority, one of the professors was explaining that there was a program in the 90s that you did essentially that. You don't pay your rent towards something, toward the housing authority. You pay your rent to an account.
Right.
And that account can only be used as a down payment as a first-time home buyer.
Wow.
Which is fantastic.
So I didn't hear about that when I took my classes. Why
did
they get rid of that?
They ended it because they saw that a lot of people weren't even using it.
Right.
So they were like, our housing authorities are not getting the rent. These people are not buying the homes. So where's the money's just sitting there, and then it just gets, it gets transferred to someone who buys a house and then in a year or two has to foreclose. So the foreclosure rates were getting so high that they were like, we're going to end this program. I think there's a way to work in the middle.
Yeah, that doesn't mean the program's broken. Maybe it's how you're letting people use it. Maybe you're not giving them enough financial consultation.
Maybe it's too expensive. Maybe we should be scaled back a little bit.
Yeah.
Micro units.
Yeah, it seems like they threw out the baby with the bathwater.
For sure, and I think also with the housing authority, like we need to, a lot of from the opposite side of that is, I think a lot of residents don't pay rent, right, or pay such little rent.
Don't pay little rent.
That they're not really incentivized to get a job or training.
No, because you almost get penalized. Well, I always double that.
You go to school. Let's say you work hard, you go to school, you get a good job, and now you're making $1,000 every 2 weeks, right? And then you have to give a higher percent now to pay rent.
Absolutely.
So it's like, dude, why don't I just sit at home with my friends and play Xbox?
Yeah. Not
go to school, don't have to pay the rent, and I'll be here for the rest of my life.
Well, or take it to the other level. And I saw this so much in my teaching career, and I don't see it as much now. I think at the high school level it's not as big of a factor, but you get middle school kids, and you get the mom who's really got her act together, but she's just, her education, whatever, she's not going to make that much money. And when she gets employed, it might be odd hours. It might be hours when the kid's home from school. And then you have a kid in puberty, they're in their middle school years, and the mother, is further disincentivized from getting the job because she's like, now my kid's going to start running with a crowd or getting into things because I'm not supervising them. So like, I not only increase my rent by getting a better job, but I'm working hours that I can't properly parent my kid. Right. And I'm not, and they get hit on so many different ends, and it's just a disincentivization.
Yeah, and I think like you and I are in a position where we can hopefully change some of these things or try to impact them and put a dent in them.
Absolutely.
Another thing is I don't think a lot of residents are able to get their driver's license. I don't know whether it's they don't have a car, so when they get a permit, they don't have the money for a driving school. They fail the written test, and they just never take it again.
Right.
But I'm seeing a lot of kids that are working for me and Next Basket Wins and Parking Dude, they just don't have a driver's license.
Right.
So I wonder if there's a way we can work with the DMV or the state level to try to get maybe classes in the housing authority and get some of these people to have an opportunity to get a license.
Yeah. That's a great thought. I mean, we definitely have them in high school. Like I've been teaching high school in New Jersey for the past 3 years, and all my kids, they have a class in high school, but maybe need a second bite at the apple. So
right, exactly.
We could set that. That would be a great thing.
And then training. I don't see why we can't. Not everyone. College isn't for everyone. Right. So
absolutely.
Like the training for to be a plumber or to be an electrician or to be in construction. I think that needs to be vamped up too, where we could bring more people into the housing authority that will train.
Right.
So if you do want a job, you might have an opportunity to get one.
Yeah, I think that's what the tech schools used to be for.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in New York State, and we called it BOCES. And BOCES was where, sometimes they served kids with special needs, but a lot of times it was the kid who wasn't going on the college track but they'll get trained to be a carpenter, an electrician, a mechanic or something like that.
Right.
And it seems like the tech high schools around here, I don't know if they service that as much. I don't hear about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, to give an example, like one of the kids that works for me he's in school at Hudson County.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have a car.
Right.
So he's like, Drew, like, what do? I don't have a car. I need to make money, right? I have to go to class during the day, so I can't get a job during the day. And then at nighttime, I have to work. Right. So, like, I can't study.
Right. It's
really hard to, like, keep that path going.
It is.
And fortunately, he gets to go to school for free, but he can't take summer classes with that. So now it takes forever to get the job done.
Right.
You know, it's an uphill battle for sure.
It is, and especially in New Jersey, because in New Jersey we have pretty good public transit for getting in and out of New York.
Yeah.
But for going from point A to point B in New Jersey, it's
kind
of shockingly bad because it's not set up to do that.
Right.
It's so obviously set up to get bodies to and from Manhattan.
Right.
And like if you try to go from Jersey City to somewhere out in New Jersey, it's difficult.
That's another maybe a good idea is like maybe we can work to get a bus system, shuttle system from Housing Authority to Hudson County Community.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe we could work with Hudson County to try to do that.
Yeah, or maybe even Or
I mean, if we could
classes down here, but that's probably the simpler way to do it because
if we can show a certain amount of kids are going,
right,
and they're having difficulty getting there,
right,
and there's an interest, I wouldn't see why the Hudson County wouldn't do that. Pick up.
It's a great idea. I love it.
Yeah.
I love what you're talking about. Yeah, I mean that would be a brilliant idea because you don't only just have to get them up to Journal Square.
Yeah.
And we're one of the municipalities because we don't have any location for Hudson County Community College. We have Stevens, which is great, but typical kids not going to Stevens. That's a pretty selective school.
Of course,
so it would be great to give our kids more access to that because it's not easy to get up there. Oh, you take the light rail, then you wait for 10-15 minutes at the pass station. Then I think you'd even have to change path trains.
I think you're right.
It's really way more of a rigmarole than it needs to be.
Right. Just talking about it sounds frustrating.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, good ideas, good thoughts. I mean, do you have any other things that you've been thinking about on the Housing Authority or just servicing kids in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things about the Housing Authority that we're trying to do is create funding and find it's so hard funding wise.
Yeah.
Because we're just strapped for.
Well, that's why we're dipping into the whole RAD thing.
Right, exactly.
I mean that's been talked about before. Yeah, and I think it's going to be great. I like the way we're doing it because we've set up the board, we're doing it slowly, and we're starting with Fox Hill, which is our building in the best shape. So I think it's a good one to learn on, and hopefully we can expand it quickly. And
we need affordable housing in Hoboken, and I don't, I'm not into. I really don't. I'm not an expert in development or affordable housing by no stretch, but it just seems like a lot of these developers that are coming into Hoboken have extra funding, or have a small margin or a piece or a sliver to give out to affordable housing.
Yeah.
And then I don't think I don't know if it's the administration or who sets these contracts up, but for example, the brand new building at 7th and Jackson.
Right. Which I had a huge part to do with that.
Right,
and
exactly. That was city council.
Well, that has 10% affordable housing.
10% affordable housing, but it's not guaranteed to go to Hoboken residents.
Exactly. Bingo.
So So where is that 10% going? That 10% is going to some politician's nephew, right?
It could.
Some person that lives in Parsippany that knows somebody that's gonna get, the developer's grandson. It's just I don't know. Maybe I'm just spitballing here, but we should lock it in where all affordable housing, whatever the percent is for any development in Hoboken, has to go to Hoboken Housing.
Right, like we administer, basically.
Yeah, there's a lottery, right?
Right. Well, and that the Fed wants us to do vouchers because that's kind of what RAD is. You're basically accepting vouchers in your own buildings by creating this nonprofit that's technically managing the buildings. So you become your own COA voucher recipient. So, we could administer it because the Fed doesn't seem to be getting away from us administering vouchers. They're just getting away from us owning the properties, or they have this pseudo thing where we're kind of.
So what held it back when that development because you guys obviously were thinking about this.
I don't think anything held it back. I mean, it wasn't. I don't think it was a thing that in the committee and being a legislative body that we could overly dictate because it was too hard. And we had this affordable housing expert that was hired, And my hope was that they would do it. And now, you know, I'm not in office, so it's hard to put that pressure on,
right.
but we can do it as a board.
Because aren't they now, isn't the developer now saying we don't have to have any affordable housing?
I don't know as much about that as I would like, but it's, well, yeah, but I mean, they can't get away with that. I mean, yeah. I was there in those negotiations, and that's the whole reason a pilot was given. Like, we never discussed putting a pilot payment on that building until we pulled the hard line with the 10%.
So they don't pay. They're not paying taxes. Is that how that works?
They're paying a payment in lieu of taxes. Although we did set up a resolution, which it's really not binding, but we did pass a resolution, at least when we passed the redevelopment agreement, saying that when they come online, that we do wish for a percentage of it to go to the public schools. Now, the trick with that is it's not binding. So this current city council doesn't have to follow that, but I think they would. I think they would get immense public pressure if they didn't follow it.
Right,
so.
Of course.
You know, but they also have to make sure somebody makes sure they are following it.
Yeah, well, I would hope so, right?
Well, but it's not one of those things where there's a mechanism locked in to make sure they do it.
What about future development? So like Northwest, we've got a big redevelopment zone.
Well, the way it works is
by the Poplar Park.
There is now legislation. There's a local ordinance where you have to have 10%
of any
affordable,
but not too.
But the thing, right? There's a lot of grandfathering under the law, and like we weren't even entirely sure if that law applied to the property on Jackson Street. Our lawyers were pretty sure that it didn't apply, but since we started negotiating the 10% anyway, it didn't really matter. It kind of was an issue we didn't have to grapple with.
Right.
But we thought it might apply, but we felt chances were it didn't apply because they were grandfathered in because the redevelopment plan was passed. I think part of the logic was the redevelopment plan was passed way before that ordinance.
It just seems like these. I don't know all of them, but a lot of the developers are getting away with a lot. Right? They're making.
I agree with you, but I disagree because the one thing that I think people don't realize is that the way the financing's set up, and maybe I'm just a sucker for believing this, but the way the financing is set up, it seems like they're either going to go belly up or they're going to get rich. And I think that's what concerns people because they see the successful developers and they're like, oh, but they're getting wealthy off the project. And I want to say, but if it wasn't set up where the successful project makes them get a good return, the bank's not going to finance it. The bank's not going to typically let them go, especially on a huge project, let them go with these razor thin profit margins that makes it almost impossible for the project to be successful.
I know that this project with this developer, he financed it through the construction unions.
He did.
Which is kind of brilliant, right?
Yeah, well, it could be a detriment though too at times because like I personally would have preferred to go condo because I like ownership. Because I just think it makes a better community when you don't have a huge percentage of renters. I think we have such an overwhelming percentage of renters, it's less rooting. I mean, not that renters can't be rooted in the community. There's tons of renters who are extremely rooted in the community. Yeah. But I just felt like overall it was a little bit better to have condos, and I think the union, that was a non-starter for their financing. Because it was union financed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so.
Because I mean, if he'll sell it in 10, 15 years probably.
Probably, yeah.
And then that union crushes it.
Yeah, I mean, there's developers that develop and sell right away. There's developers that develop, hold on to it for a rather short period of time, and then there's developers that just build a portfolio and manage it forever.
Now
that 2 branches.
That building has how many? What's the deal with the parking for that building?
I used to know these numbers off the top of my head.
It's a certain amount.
It's a good amount of parking. I think that we required more than would have been required under our laws, but
is there a percent or is it how? Because it seems
like there was. I don't remember the exact numbers.
Like a lot of these newer buildings that are being built, we say, hey, you have to have 4 spots for every 8 units or whatever.
We did do that, but I remember it probably wasn't enough for my liking because there's 2 schools of thought, which I'm sure you know. We'll get into next about the stuff you do with parking, but there's 2 schools of thought. One school of thought that I don't subscribe to is that if you create more parking, it's going to bring more cars into the town. Yeah. And I think that's nonsense. I think it's so expensive to have a car, particularly in the New York area with insurance rates and everything. I think if you bring a car in, it's because you need it to get to your job, or if you just set up enough, or maybe you have a beach house or something like that, you're not using it that often. So I don't think it's a problem with road congestion. And I think when you bring in the cars, especially when it's so cheap to get a yearly pass, you're just exacerbating the problem if you don't create.
Well, that's the problem, is that these buildings are being built with the enforcement that they have to have a certain amount of parking spots, but then there's no enforcement that the resident of the building has to use the parking spot. So what they're doing is then, now you're just taking. I'm moving in. I'm taking my car.
Right.
I should have to pay for the parking in the building, but now I'm just going and paying the $15, and now my car goes onto the street, where it should be enforced that you have to take that spot.
Absolutely, I 100% agree. And it's funny because in my early days on the council, when Nino Ghiacci was still on the council, and he was part of the committee, and Teresa Castellano was part of the committee, we were hammering that out a lot, and we just couldn't get the support and
what was the opposite?
Well, what we wanted to do, and I think Nino came up with the suggestion, or he had heard about this, was we wanted to research and figure out if we could pass a law that would require you to use it yourself, but then give people an option to bring in these storage pods that are about the size of a car, probably taller than a car, but no, but the perimeter was no more than a car, and say, hey, if you don't have a car and you consider this waste, then you can put it in a storage pod instead. And and because we were worried about the waste argument, that people would say, if you require me to use this for a car and I don't have a vehicle,
the problem with that is now you're going. There's a huge parking problem in Hoboken. Now you have all these pods taking up spots.
Well, no, but then I'm missing an important part of it, is that we were going to give you the option to rent it out, but only to a Hoboken resident.
Oh, okay.
That was the thing. It was like a three-tiered thing where you use it yourself as option one, you rent it to a Hoboken resident for their car, option two, or if neither of those options appealed to you, you could put a storage pod in there. So that was
there's a whole. I'm very close to this because of the business that you alluded to, Parking Dude, that I run.
Right.
But there's a huge war on cars going on.
Well, before we get started on that, I want to hear about that. But tell me a little bit about, because
I
don't know, the one time that I wasn't on the Parking and Transportation Subcommittee on City Council was, I think, when you came in.
Oh, okay.
There was only 1 year,
I literally went on a bachelor party. We drove to Montreal, right? And my buddy from Columbus, Ohio, had his car parked in Hoboken. This was in 2012 or 13.
Okay.
So we get back and his car is towed. And we're like, what is going on here?
Such a typical story.
And like that experience literally made me go, are you kidding me? Like, he didn't know the rules. He didn't see the signs.
And when did his car get towed?
It got towed on we left on a Thursday night. It got towed on that Friday because he was a visitor.
And when'd you come
parked
back?
on a resident side. We got back on Monday.
So he really got hit.
Oh, he was like $1,000.
Oh, Jesus.
So it's like this poor guy.
Right.
And then I started to like put a post up, and then these people were like, yeah, it happened to me last week. That I got booted, I got towed.
Right.
So I'm like, I'm gonna start, and then after I got like 5 street cleaning tickets, I was like, there's got to be a better way.
Right.
So I think a lot of people thought about it, and I just happened to have a roommate in college that was a programmer.
Oh, nice.
So I said, can you do this? Let's put together a mobile app that just alerts everyone of what the street cleaning rules are, what the rules are to park, has every on-street parking spots rules, and then alerts you to move your car so you avoid getting a street cleaning ticket.
Right.
That's how it just started. It started with that. And he did that. We launched it in 2016. And it was a huge hit. It got a ton of press because $7 million worth of street cleaning or parking tickets were handed out in 15.
Right.
125,000 tickets. Right. The largest amount.
That's crazy.
In any city, municipality in the state of New Jersey.
Yeah.
Right. The next closest is Newark with 3 million. So we're like double we're only a mile square.
Right.
So like there's obviously, I was like, there's got to be something else to this. And what you find out is that there's a huge push in this city by the current mayor at the time to get rid of cars, to use cars as a way to get revenue in the parking world. Right. Take that revenue and pad other areas of the budget.
Yeah.
Right. Use it as almost like a local tax, and at the same time prevent and prohibit people from coming here with cars.
I can neither confirm nor deny that because the committee never had that attitude, and I was on the committee for all but 1 year, but I can't say whether or not there was that attitude
And at the
coming out of the
time,
administration, because it definitely was a real pro like bike and walking thing.
yes, of course.
And I ran into that in other scenarios where I'm like, guys, some people just absolutely need to use cars, and there was definitely a vibe that it wasn't, the necessity wasn't appreciated.
I get the whole fact that biking and walking and scootering is great for the environment and is something that is awesome in Hoboken, and we should all be able to work together.
Right.
Pedestrian, cyclist, driver.
Right.
Right. There's no reason why we can all cohabit. Right. I don't understand the argument and the hostility from the people that cycle, bike, and then want to get rid of cars. I don't understand it because
why do they have to go hand in hand? I mean, because you're enthusiastic about cycling and biking, and I'll give you an example.
You can be both.
Years ago, I'm half Portuguese. We got to visit Portugal, and we reunited my dad with a cousin of his who's about the same age, and they lived right outside of Lisbon. It was still considered Lisbon, but it was kind of like living in the Jersey City equivalent of Lisbon.
Okay.
And he had 2 cars. This guy loved his cars. He had like a Beamer and a Mercedes.
Right.
He was a real car guy. But because Lisbon has so much mass transit, they pretty much use the cars on weekends. And my thing to people is I would always talk about that and be like, there are people in Europe that have cars. They just don't use them that often because there's such good mass transportation and there's so much walkability that it's like, why would you get in your car? It's just a headache. It's like the bad choice that's in front of you.
Whether we're in Hoboken, we got voted like the #1 walkable city in the country, right?
Yeah, I think we did.
Like, awesome. Yeah. I love it. I walk all the time.
Sure,
but
me too.
I need to drive my car. I have to go to the NBA office in Secaucus, right? My wife travels every single day to get to her work in Moonachie. Right? People need their cars. Elderly citizens need to drive to get their medicine.
Right.
Like, that just happened. Like, you can't get rid of car. Like, the person that says more bump outs, get rid of parking spaces and more bike lanes, protected bike lanes, and take away. There was someone the other day that told me that they should make Willow no parking on Willow from Newark to 14th and just make it a bus and bike lane.
See,
it's like,
but that actually runs contrary to a lot of the evidence because we had Ian Sachs was our parking and transportation director.
I heard he was fantastic.
He was fantastic, and
Morgan not so much.
Well, there were definitely. I'm not gonna knock anybody, but Ian was. The good thing about Ian was there were definitely times I totally did agree with him, and one of them was he was a big proponent of you make the spaces and the cars will come, and he and I would have respectful but vigorous debates over that one.
The biggest.
With him, the thing is he was super knowledgeable, and he would talk about the streets, and he would be like, you always want a skinnier street. That's when they say put a street on a diet.
Yeah.
So like if you turned Willow into where there was just the buses and the bike lane, I guess you'd have no cars, but even, who knows, even the bus driver might speed a little bit. The point is when you have he was telling me all the statistics show that when you have a wider street, a motorist just drives faster. They just do. So it's important for everything to be a little bit on the tight side.
Yeah. I think our parking problem doesn't really, obviously we have 13,000 permits for 11,000 spots, so there's a supply and demand issue.
Sure.
But more than that, I think it's more about there's lack of technology applied, there's lack of information, there's lack of notification.
Right.
We don't have a messaging system that we can throw out to everybody. And that's what our app is starting to do is we're starting to alert people. People are coming to us because they vent to us, they ask us questions.
Right.
And we give them answers, more so than the HPU.
So how do you make money off of an app like that?
So
do you have to compete with the Park Mobile, or can you just do your own?
No, we're totally different business. Park Mobile's just in the business for meters.
But do you do that?
No, we do not do meters.
Oh, okay.
No,
so you're like a different business.
We're information.
In the same sphere.
We're just where we started to make money, which we said, how can we now have all these users? How can we monetize this?
Right.
Is we do snow removal. Okay. So like you go on the app, you're parked, you're a teacher, you have to get to work the next day. It snows 6 inches. For $50, we come in, we remove the snow.
Right.
You wake up, you drive away. We do that. We do car washes, the same thing.
Oh, wow.
And then we got into the valet.
I had no idea you did all this.
Yeah, and now the biggest one is we do, you'll probably make you laugh, but we do valet parking, and we do different types. So if you, let's say, use your car almost never, right? But you park in the street for $15.
Right.
and you work in the city, so you never have to travel with your car every day.
Sure.
You don't want to have to move your car for street cleaning, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
So for $65 a month, you pay us. We literally get a spare key and move your car around the block, avoid the street cleaner, and put it in the same spot.
That's awesome.
And we're getting hundreds of people doing this because
I could see that.
For $15 and $65, right? We're up to $80. It's cheaper than $200-$300 in the garage, right? And it's the convenience of having your car right on the street where you live.
Right.
And then we do valet parking for events. So if you have a wedding shower, which we're doing a lot of at Hudson Table,
okay.
You have 35 guests coming. What's the number one problem that people are like, oh, I'm not going to Hoboken?
I don't know how to park.
I don't want to park.
Can't
I don't want to get a ticket. I don't want to get towed. I don't want to get booted.
You have to practically take a college class,
right,
in how to park in this community to figure it out.
And that affects, who does that affect? That affects our businesses.
Sure.
These events are not going to have these events anymore.
Right.
If we're not helping them with their parking.
Right.
I really believe that.
No, I agree.
And for restaurants now, what we're doing is we're offering a virtual valet stand. So if you're an out-of-town guest and you make a reservation, and probably the question is, hey, do you know where I can park close to the restaurant? Hey, we got parking dude, give them a call. We'll meet, a person will be standing outside, you pull up, you go eat, we park your car, when you're ready, you shoot us a text, done. You walk outside and we pull away. So like for $10, Dave, $10, like, you have.
You're selling me here.
I'm
stressing because I'm thinking about when I've been putting up these videos. They had a thing yesterday. I saw like, is this a product endorsement or not? I'm like,
yeah, you sound like a used car salesman.
But it's a good product. You sound like you really are.
And
I didn't know that much.
My whole thing right now that I'm struggling with is working with the city of Hoboken, the municipality.
Well, instead of getting into that, but who are your competitors? Like who else is offering that sort of service?
No one is offering. Everyone's in. If anybody has a parking app, it's in the meter business.
Like the Park Mobile sphere.
Park Mobile,
right.
Go, Park Pro. There's other apps that have tried to come into Hoboken that are no longer around.
What's the one with the private spaces that I've seen? Because up by where Battaglia's store used to be.
Oh yeah, that's
Spot Hero.
Spot Hero.
Yeah, what's that about?
That's just mainly for events. Like if you go to Giant Stadium, you can reserve your parking spot in the garage. Okay. So you don't, it doesn't sell out, and you always have a spot.
So you're doing a different thing then.
Yeah, we're not really. We're all about information. We're all about technology and notification, and just helping people avoid getting tickets. That's our number one theme. Is just trying to help them not get a ticket.
And is there like any sort of cost to just having the
No,
app?
it's free. It's free to download. Go,
So you make your money off the services like the valet and moving the cars.
Our thing is we'll help you with trying to avoid getting tickets, and hopefully we earn your trust, and you find some value in it for free, and then you have a problem or you have a friend coming, and then you think of us. Right. And now it's just been flooded with. We get a bad rap because we're anti the city and we're always calling out but it's so easy. It's so easy when you do a new construction on Washington Street, and you could probably speak to this because you were part of it. Right. And you take the 20 feet or maybe 30 feet that's a bus spot, right? Bus parking. Mm-hmm. And you take that, and when it's not bus parking, it used to be 5 or 6 parking spots. Mm-hmm. And you make it a cement pavement. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah. Why would you do that when you can have now?
There were things. With Washington Street, the most unfortunate thing about that was there came a point where I think it became more and more obvious that the city council wasn't going to support the dedicated bike lane. Just because
but that was supposed to be
we were just too concerned. Right? Personally, I thought that should have gone on Bloomfield Street in one direction and on Hudson Street in another direction. And we didn't even get a chance to debate that.
You're talking about a protected bike lane.
A protected bike lane. And I know other people had alternative ideas as well. That was my alternative idea. I'm sure other people had probably even better alternative ideas. We spent so much time debating the protected bike lane instead of basically the administration just giving in and saying like there's not the council support for this, that we almost exhausted ourselves debating that issue where we were beating a dead horse, and we never, in my opinion, dedicated the proper time to vetting alternatives. We just said, all right, we're gonna give up the dedicated bike lane, but then the plan that came in didn't get even 5% of the discussion that the prior plan had
So
gotten.
what was the fascination, like were the facts there and the research there that there were that many people biking and that much traffic. Because if you look at Observer Highway, right? We redid Observer Highway. Yeah. We put this beautiful green bike lane,
right.
And I run my camp at the edge, and I look out the window during the day. I never see a bike on it.
No, I've
there's never.
I will no way reveal my source, but I've heard of very official studies done on that. It's super underutilized.
Okay.
Which
that's good.
There I don't have a problem with that, because actually what they did there is not necessarily a problem. Although maybe you could have gotten another lane that maybe you could have alternated.
Could use 3 going in during
the
morning.
So maybe that could have been done in a different way. But I think in Washington Street, it definitely could have been problematic. And to make that street that skinny, which it would have been a really, really skinny street.
Absolutely.
I think it would have been problematic, but that's why I wanted to discuss alternatives, because I'm like, just because we don't want to do it in this way doesn't mean we can't achieve the goals that you folks are looking for in a different way. And why are we not vetting those? Why are we digging in our heels on option A and not even thinking about what option B or C could be?
Like, I don't think it's safe to have any, like that bike lane that exists on Washington Street now. I ride a scooter on it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
A parked car, a double parked car, illegally, I have to now go into the main road. Right.
But that's
someone opens a door.
That's what the advocates for the dedicated bike lane will point to, and they'll say if you have.
I just don't think there should be. I think there shouldn't be a bike lane on that road. Right. There should be a bike lane. Fine, if you want to put a protected bike lane down the waterfront, I think there is, right. It's only 2 blocks down.
Yeah.
Or on, like you said, Hudson or Bloomfield.
Well, go
ahead and do it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you could have done other things too. Maybe, I think Ian used to always tell me something that was wrong with doing the bike lanes between the cars and the sidewalk. Maybe it was just doors opening up, but I mean, doors are more likely to open up on the driver's side. Maybe you could have done that. I mean, we should have just been vetting these things.
Yeah.
And that's what kills me, is the energy. The energy was wasted on continuing to push for an option that obviously there wasn't council support for, and it wasn't diverted to putting out other options that would have made everybody more satisfied.
And then on top of that, we might as well talk about the bump outs then.
Sure.
I mean, I get it. It takes, 7 seconds to get across the street, and now it only takes 4.
Right.
And it's safer. Understand that completely. But to the tune of like millions of dollars that we did and we affected the businesses, and and then they were replaced with these rain gardens, right?
Yeah.
That are now just weeds. Who's maintaining that?
Well, that's it.
So if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like, just leave. We don't need the pretty bump outs. In my opinion.
Well, the problem is that a problem I think can be solved if the will and the understanding that the problem is there is that
what was the problem that the bump out addresses?
I've been a proponent of open space, but the thing is, and a lot of people will say, is you better be able to maintain it, and that's an issue too. That's going to be an issue with rebuild by design. Because I was talking to Cheryl when I had her in to talk about this, saying that I know people who are diehard environmentalists who are still concerned about what that's going to do, who's going to maintain it, what it's going to do to our tax space.
That's a big space, right?
Yeah. It's huge. I mean, it's a massive, extremely expensive piece of infrastructure. Who's going to maintain it?
Right.
Who's going to maintain it? And
so
then,
why
when you're
we
putting
do
all
it?
this money into it, I mean, I definitely playing for the home team, and I'm worried about Hoboken first, but the fact is we have some very expensive infrastructure in New Jersey Transit, their train terminal, which is I guess the second biggest terminal in the state, and I've gotten word that that's not necessarily protecting the equipment, the tracks, and all that infrastructure as well as it could. So that's a concern.
So you were on the city council. Mm-hmm. What was the main reason for spending the money on the bump outs instead of taking that money and spending it on our water mains or
I think there was a real desire to have, and I'm not saying this was for me, but I think there was a real desire out there by some people who were planning out the street to have it be a complete street, in the way that traffic engineers will talk about complete streets. And I think that's very noble and very laudable, and we should be going for that, but it doesn't necessarily work everywhere, and maybe you got to dial it back a little bit.
Was there another city that was pointed to where, hey, 2000 there were 25 injuries, and then we converted the bump outs, and now we had 0 injuries?
I want to say there were, but I don't remember specific examples. Yeah. I mean, Portland always seems to get bannered around when it comes to these things.
Because now we're doing them. I see them on like Clinton and 7th Street. We're doing bump outs.
Right.
And 8th Street and Clinton. I mean, right up. We're just going through now.
And there's definitely a lot of traffic engineers who will be proponents of that, and they're not necessarily wrong. I just don't know how much of it is just studies and theory, and how much of it has been put into practical effect.
From a parking standpoint, we saw all that, and we were annoyed, but now it's starting to, with Director Sharp in there, I have seen, we have a great dialogue going back and forth now, finally, that is really working, where a user complains about something, I send Director Sharp a text, he finds out what's going on, and it's working beautiful.
Well, that's good.
That's the
refreshing.
way,
that's refreshing.
And it's not, I don't think it's really just Director Sharp and myself working that out. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there was really a directive to like, hey, we need to get with Parking Dude and see what's going on from like the administration, but
I doubt there was. I would say that's more Director Sharp being, and
he seems
that's
very,
a credit to him if he's doing that.
And like the whole thing that happened with I think the tipping point was what happened with the on-demand parking, the meter pricing, which was a disaster.
Right.
You can't. I don't want to waste all of your time with why it doesn't work in Hoboken.
No, but that
didn't work.
An epic disaster.
Yeah, it doesn't work. We did a petition. We got 3,000 signatures. 100 businesses saying that it doesn't work. Their employees can't park. Like, I think they saw that and they realized, like, hey, maybe this guy can, and this group, because essentially that's what we now are, is like a group of people. Maybe we can lean on them and they can lean on us and we can work together, which is starting to work nicely, which is important.
I mean, the important thing about that's not the important thing. That's an example of where I think you can go too extreme. I think there's schools of thought and philosophies about parking and transportation that do work like what do they call that again? It's like that demand pricing.
Yeah, dynamic pricing. Right?
I mean, dynamic pricing can work, but they rolled it. They rolled it out in its most extreme form.
Yeah,
it's like you could dial it up from 1 to 10, and you went to 10.
It was
out of the gate.
It was $2 for 2 hours, and then it was $12 for 2 hours.
Right,
It's
exactly.
Like, dude,
so it's like you could have done
$350.
Hey,
right?
Put it up to 1.
But the whole
to 2.
Let's
roll this out and do it gradually and see what's right for this community.
I agree. It doesn't matter whether it was $25. If you are driving into Hoboken, do you even know that there's dynamic pricing? There's no signs, right?
Exactly.
They didn't put any signs up.
Which is a huge part of it.
If they would have put a sign up that said, okay, go to the parking lot at, 5th and
Hudson?
The municipal garage.
Oh, the big one in the center of town.
Yeah, center.
Yeah, it's like 5th and Clinton.
5th and Clinton. 5th and Clinton, the pricing is $1 per hour.
Right.
And then adjacent to that, the sign said, Washington Street, $25 for an hour. Which one are you going to go to? Right? You're going to go to 5th and, but they didn't do that.
Right.
So, and then the problem was there was no spots at 5th and Clinton because we ran out of, we need another garage. We really do.
We do.
And some people say that's not a smart use of land, just build a garage.
But that's the people that I said I don't subscribe to. That's the people that say if you
this
make
city
spots,
needs a garage,
you're going to bring in more cars, and I
no. It needs to be a visitor garage. It needs to be put signs up. This is where the garage is. Every visitor that comes, then have a free shuttle service that takes you from the garage to Washington Street, right? Takes you to the garage, to the library, wherever you need to go. People know, just pull right into that. I go to Union City, right, for a basketball event. Mm-hmm. I pull into that garage. I park. I walk to the school. It's simple.
Yeah.
That's all it has to be.
That's a beautiful thing. Yeah, it's so counterintuitive. I mean,
but what do you guys talk about at those subcommittee meetings?
Well,
like
those committees,
I've been in one. I sat in one. I would love to sit in one now.
I'm not allowed. When I first got on the council, I just naively assumed that a lot of that stuff was worked out. And
who was on the committee with you?
That was the first and only committee I chaired in my first year on the council.
Wow.
And I remember being like, oh my God, this is a hornet's nest of issues. And you just were blown away by how many issues there were with it.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, and Peter Cunningham and I were on it a lot, and I loved being on it with Peter Cunningham because Peter and I were probably the two members of the council that had commuted to work via the most methods.
Right, because I know he has a car at Parks.
Right, and I had both worked in the suburbs and in both Midtown and downtown Manhattan, and I think he was consistently in the same job, but because of the nature of his job, he would go to different offices. So like we both had a pretty good understanding of it's a difference when you're leaving town for
Right.
pleasure, and when you're leaving town because you have to be at work at a certain time or have to be at a meeting at a certain time. And he and I were the two that I think had most utilized the different points of ingress and egress out of Hoboken the most.
Right.
So it was great serving with him because he was pretty knowledgeable about it and pretty pragmatic about it. But you know, there would always be this friction between those of us who faced pragmatic stuff and the traffic engineers in their studies. And let me give you a great example of that. Over here on Jackson Street, it made me nuts.
No, I know you fought hard for this, right? About the people coming
and luckily,
in
and that was a godsend when Ruben got back on the council, because here I was kind of going against the grain because the people whose team I was on didn't agree with me. And I'm like, you can't make that one lane. That's insane for that one road segment of
Right.
Jackson Street to be one lane. And you know, people were they were going so far as telling me somebody's going to die and their blood's going to be on your hands.
Oh,
I'm just like, okay, we're getting outrageous here. And then when Ruben got on the council, you know, he was the 4th Ward rep, and he agreed with me 100%, and he put a big push on that. So that was great. And we finally got it undone. But then when we got it undone, we had the engineers coming in and doing these studies. Now, living in the Sky Club, I constantly come into Jackson and make both the left-hand turn
Right.
at the intersection of Jackson, Patterson, Plank, or I go straight, depending on what I'm doing, depending if I'm going directly home or if I'm going to pick up my kids or whatever.
Okay.
They were going to make both lanes a left turn lane. And I think the right lane was going to be you could go straight or turn left, and the left-hand lane was going to be left-hand turn only. And my thing was, I go, that road constantly gets jammed up Patterson Plank. And if you make it where you can turn left from the right-hand lane, it's gonna be a bottleneck, and nobody's gonna be able to go straight. And then these people who know, I just want to go straight, if they didn't make it the left-hand turn an option from the right-hand lane, we wouldn't be infuriated right now. It was just going to be a terrible move, and I knew that because I live here. Right. So the traffic engineer, John Jar, who worked with my roommate from college for years and knew him really well, considered him a friend. I'm in a meeting, and I'll tell him, I go, John, we can't do this. You just got to take my word for it. And he right away, he goes, that's fine. He goes, my statistics are telling me that it would be a little better my way. He goes, but it really is not a big difference. Let's change it. I won't say who, but a representative of the mayor at the time just looked at me and said, hey, Dave, why don't you let the experts do their jobs?
Yep.
And, you know,
there you go.
There was a confrontation.
Yeah.
I'm an admitted hothead. I think you can relate on that a little bit, you know. And I was just like, come on. Don't even say that to me. And that's honestly what gets people frustrated with the administration sometimes. Is like, no, you know, yeah, the engineers are the experts, but I just told him my concern,
yeah.
And he just said, no big deal. It's really statistically a slight difference, and maybe you know more than I know because you live here.
Sure.
And we did it that way, and thank God, because I'll tell you what, that thing gets backed up. It gets backed up all the time, and if you had a left turn lane from both lanes, nobody would be able to just go straight on north on Jackson.
Right.
So,
I think a lot of the times it's not just this administration, but city council and people, and they get stubborn, right? They get a little, I don't know if it's arrogance, but they just don't want to change the mindset of what they're geared toward.
They get married to their initial.
They get married, exactly right.
And that's a huge
point. And I think, like, when looking at politics, I would love to see more people get involved that are just normal, like everyday people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, a doctor, lawyer, construction person, whatever you are, you're not like, your goal in life is not to be a politician. Right, and I think more people like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have any ambition for further office. You don't want to be the mayor. You don't want to be the governor. You just want to see things happen. Right. You have a good voice.
Right.
You have a community, and you think you're a leader, and you can problem solve. Right. That's essentially what it is.
Absolutely.
And just get in office and get things done. And that's what like, I get so frustrated speaking at city council, is that there's so many people responding that are just career politicians, right? Their father did it, their mother did it, they want to be the mayor, and they've been there for years and decades, and like, they love this city and they're from this city, and my way is the right way, but you're not seeing it clearly because you're jaded.
But I don't even have a problem with I'm from this city, and I don't even have a problem with doing it for a long time. I'm not a term limits guy. I think if you're doing the job, as long as we're putting you up for election. But here's the thing, and let's agree to disagree on that part of it. But I agree with you in that if somebody is holding office because they're really doing it because they have their eye on a couple more rungs up the ladder, that's not the reason to hold office. Like, you hold office because you're interested in that office, and you would have held that office if somebody said you were never getting any higher than this.
Right, and those are the people usually at the end of the day that will do their job so like above where the norm is.
Sure.
That when the office above opens up, it makes sense for them to go and get it.
Right. If I get the feeling that somebody has moved on because they're just really good at the rung below, and then an opportunity presented itself, not that they fought and tried to carve out, and, were climbing the greasy pole of politics.
We see it, like the last election that we both were a part of. I mean, with the hate flyer, I mean, dude, I'm knocking doors. I'm sure you did too. Like, I would knock every single night. I knocked doors. Sure. I was out there. I was like, I'm gonna put in everything I have to win this. Right. And at the end of the day, I felt like I was the most educated because I talked to the most people. Sure. And even though I didn't win, I had I had my finger on the pulse of what people in my area were talking about.
Yeah, and I think that's.
And I don't think a lot of politicians.
That's a strength of the candidate that you ran with, Mike DeFusco. And that I think where he was at his best, and I've seen him just talking to people on the street. Right. I definitely think there are times up on the council dais. I think he maybe needs a little ripening, and he's a great guy. I consider him an absolute friend. But where I think he was out of the gate, just very sophisticated and good, was that whole just talking to people on the street. Yeah, he's very taking in information, sharing information. He's excellent with that.
He's very good at it, and I just there's some people that are on the council that are, like I said, are career politicians, and it's so obvious, right? And they're really good at it. Right. There's members on the city council that are excellent. That are like pros. Right. It's like, dude, I'm watching.
Well, that's government in general, right?
Yeah,
you
sometimes sit there.
Only the pros survive.
You sometimes sit there and go, you know what? Maybe he's right, and you're like, no, because you don't want to go down that drain of where he's going. Right. But they just win you over because they're so good at spinning the room to what they want.
It's true.
And it's so ugly to watch, man. And in this city, it's really, I think it's worse than in other cities, just because of the history of politics in this city and the corruption and the mayors that have gone to jail and just a lot of disgusting things.
That would be. We could have a conversation another day about that because that could be a whole.
And I just don't get why other people don't see it. They don't like.
Well, it's. I think it's that forever challenge of why are you doing this? And I think anybody who gets into a position of leadership, maybe their mind starts spinning and they start thinking about what some next steps could be, because you get intrigued by it, and you probably hopefully you get addicted to the really good things about it. Like, you've done something positive for the community, and you want to do that again. You want to have another success. You want to taste another win. And it was not a win for you, but a win for the community. Right. So that the part of it I see, but I agree. It's a real problem when somebody's getting into it just purely for their ambitions. And I've told people that with some people that's a concern of mine. And what they said is, well, who cares? Because their ambitions are going to serve me, because they're going to try to do great in the job to move up. And I'm like, I think there's a Venn diagram there, and there's certainly times when you're going to have that overlap.
Yeah, they'll overlap for sure.
But there's a lot of times where you're in the outside of the Venn diagram too, and maybe that's where people,
and if you just
do all sorts of negative things, from something as extreme negative as taking a bribe to just gunning for something that really isn't the best choice for the community.
Right, exactly. And you just see, if you look at the history of some of these people and what they vote on or what they've done, like what are their accomplishments, you start to realize there's not a lot there, right? There's not much there, but you're still winning. Yeah. And winning.
Well, and I think that's one of the important things that we can all do when there's these election cycles, is just, it's one of those times. I mean, I know from having served, you're never, it's my second election. I was at a friend's Halloween party they had on, I think it was Bloomfield Street, where they do the most intense trick-or-treating. And so, and I took a break from campaigning. I was campaigning, that day is it looks a little weird to campaign on that day.
Yeah,
right? So even our campaign manager was
like,
no,
you
should go to this party and you should hobnob with the neighbors and talk to them. And this one guy, I'm sitting out there on the deck, I'm having a beer with a guy I knew pretty well, and this other guy I didn't know so well, he goes, "Hey Dave, can I ask you a question?" And I'm like, it's a week before an election, man. You can ask me to shovel your driveway, mow your lawn, and do your dishes. And my friend started laughing, and I'm like, but that's the truth. There's a real truth in that. And I think what you're saying, we can take advantage of that there are people that frustratingly seem to be unable to wedge out of office, but at least during an election cycle, we can make them get on the record and talk about issues that they normally
if someone runs against them,
right. But that's why you need even in a hopeless battle, you need somebody to always run against somebody,
challenge someone just to get the issues out.
Even if you know you're going to get slaughtered, if you got them on the record about a few things that they avoid talking about, or you got them to consider a position that they only during election season are open to considering, you've won.
Because really in this city, what you find and what we see, and I'm sure you saw it too in the last election, like a lot of people just don't care.
They don't.
They don't care.
They don't.
Well, you're running for a while. What are you running for? Oh, we have a city council.
Well, it's not even not caring.
Like the younger generation, they just don't it doesn't impact their day to day.
Well, maybe the younger you go, maybe
the older generation.
I also think it's a bandwidth issue, though. I mean, you have one kid.
I have one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you'll know. I have 2 kids now. It is so hard. I am only as knowledgeable about it as I am because I served on the city council, and it almost, I think anybody who's served, it becomes a bit of an obsession to just keep up with it. But I think for most people, it's like you're going to work, you're trying to manage life in the New York area in an urban grid where there's extra challenges. It's just difficult. And who has the bandwidth for this? I mean, I have people that still have no idea the difference between council at large and the wards, that there are ward people. I have people a good friend of mine said to me, when I lost my election, I lost my bid to have a 3rd term, he goes, well, look at it this way, half of Hoboken's not going to know you're out of office for 2 years. And it's true. I mean, so many people come up to me and they're like, hey, how are things in City Hall? I'm like, I don't know. I tell you, tell me. So it's just an interesting thing. I don't know if it's not caring, but there's definitely an uninformed public. And that's the last thing I want to talk to you about before we have to cut off for the day. But, part of the reason I'm doing this is I think there's just a lack of discussions about the issues because we have so little news coverage in this city. And it seems like the Jersey Journal is going more and more to Jersey City exclusive coverage.
Right.
It seems like that to me. And having people even pick up the Jersey Journal. I was telling Jen when I had her in here the last episode that I've made a habit of trying to pick up the hard copy of the Jersey Journal because it's just a different experience.
What's a hard copy?
Yeah. And then I heard a report. I haven't even read it yet. My wife was telling me just 2 days ago that the Hudson Reporter laid off all their reporters.
Yeah, I didn't even know that. But I remember the Hudson Reporter being pretty edgy and opinionated, and I would pick up that paper on my stoop. Right, and I'd read it, and I thought it was kind of interesting every week to see what the stories were.
But if that's true, and that's only going to make a bad situation worse. I mean,
if there's no
agree with me, it's a bad situation.
Of
we
course.
Don't have enough coverage.
I absolutely agree. I think right now the coverage comes from a select amount of Instagram accounts and bloggers and websites.
Right.
There's probably a handful.
And
those
all have their detriments, right?
They all have their opinions and exactly. I don't think there's an accurate, unbiased opinion of someone reporting what's going on in Hoboken.
I mean, there are things I think HMAG does a great job, but they're more set up on the old magazine periodical model, where their stories aren't as frequent.
Yeah,
right? I mean, when they do a story, it can be very good.
Something comes out, they'll write a little short thing and put it out there.
Right.
But yeah, I agree. HMAG does a really good job.
Right. But it's when they cover something that
exactly.
they do a good job, and it's a different kind of.
It's almost like if HMAG can expand and get more people reporting and writing.
Right.
And put it online.
Right.
So I can get a daily digest.
Exactly.
Of the whole.
Yeah, you wish they had a few reporters that are doing a more a daily sort of.
Yeah, 6 p.m. What happened today in Hoboken?
Yeah.
Because
they're pretty unbiased, which is good, and we need that because the blogs get beyond belief biased, and then you have the trolling factor and everything like that. But if you got that, that's good. I think Hoboken Girl does that to an extent, and like
the only thing again with kind of like Hoboken Girl is a business, right? So she's making money on when people are saying, hey, try my new, I'm paying you to write an article about my restaurant.
Oh, okay.
Right? So like.
So I don't know that. So
that's how she makes her money.
So it's not
right?
PR, it's like advertising.
Exactly
basically.
Right. If she was doing more opinionated stories, which she's not,
right?
Because she chooses not to, because I don't think she wants to annoy the city hall or annoy different businesses.
It's probably a much more difficult financial model to do that.
Yeah, like parking, dude. What we're doing. We're fighting for people for parking in the city.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
Like there's no question about it.
Right.
And we don't care if we upset anybody. We are going to fight for what the problems are when it relates to parking.
Right.
So if a temporary no parking sign falls down because it rained, and a person gets towed at $1,000 expense, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And we need to fix that. So like that, but yeah, I agree. We need more people reporting, and I love stuff like this that you're doing.
Well, and I'm glad you embraced it. And I got that from you because you.
Yeah, I wanted to get right. Let's get parking.
But it's a lack of coverage, and I mean, it should show its face in a zillion other modes, and I think there's so much room for it. But it's hard to do. I mean, I'm doing this because I've wanted to do this for a long time. I feel like I have the contacts from the time I was on the city council to do a good job with it, and it's free. I mean. My wife's a TV producer. I know how to produce a video with just iMovie and stuff like that. I can get this up without spending a ton of money.
Sure.
But most models require some money, and it's hard. That's why you see just the little things that people can do with a blog or something like that. Otherwise, it becomes where the Hoboken Girl has to monetize herself, and it's hard to do that.
Right. And there's a lot of podcasts in Hoboken, I think, but they have no interest really. It's not centralized Hoboken. Right. It's just someone living in Hoboken inviting guests, trying to make money, like you're talking about, trying to get in the top 20.
Right.
And it's a blog or a podcast about someone who made it in the advertising world or whatever it is.
Right.
Like I don't want to hear about that. Like I want to hear about what's going on in Hoboken, your opinions, my opinions.
Sure.
Everyone's, and I look forward to watching some of these shows for sure.
Well, listen, I think we're gonna have to break with that because I'm trying to keep myself to around an hour. But
cool.
The beauty is, you seem enthused, and I want to have you in here again. So
fantastic.
We should do this again soon. I'm going to have to take a little break from doing this for a while because I'm going to be spending most of August with my daughters abroad and stuff. Not abroad, not anywhere in Europe or anything like that. But we're going to be out and about. But cool. I'm really glad you came in. I have to thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Coming in because this is something I'm really enthusiastic about. I want to have you back, talk about it because I think we barely tapped the surface of things we could talk about. Yeah, and I want to thank everybody for watching and tuning into this. And I'll take a little break after this one's released, probably for a couple weeks. But then this fall, I'm gonna be coming and calling over the month of August and trying to get people. But if anybody is watching this or caught wind of this and wants to sit down and have a chat with me, I would love to talk to you. So just reach out and shoot me an email at the email address that's attached to this YouTube account. So thank you, Andrew, for coming in.
Cool. Pleasure.
Thank you guys for watching. Take care.